Hey, so instead of using Weixin, I figured I'd just make a video. I guess a bit of the backstory is, so I'm friends with Chu Youngming through my Korean class, and then through him I've met a few of his other friends. We'll get together and play Sangguo Sha or something. So I've met a few of his friends, and he has this one friend who works at a furniture store, and he's one of those high-achieving, really likes to suck up to his boss and tries to keep working up the social ladder. So of course, when he makes friends with somebody who knows an American who can speak some Chinese, he was like, "Oh yeah, I'll go to work and tell everyone, and maybe I'll be able to make some connections and move on up." So he plans a special dinner with his manager and I. It was really awkward because it was just she was maybe 40 something. And I didn't really know what to talk to her about, but just because I was speaking a bit of Chinese and she thought I was cute, she was like, "Oh, yeah, we should really get together and do stuff." And so I've seen her a few times since then, and I guess maybe we're kind of becoming friends. But every time I'm with her, I'm always like, I don't know what I should say. But anyway, so then a few weeks after that, he talked to his boss. And he was like, "Oh yeah, you should go down and talk to my boss. He wants to talk to you about a few things." And I was like, "Okay, I guess I'll go talk to your boss and see what that's about." So I go there, and I start talking to his boss, and he's like, at first he was just asking me a few simple questions about me, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is okay." And then halfway through, I realized it was a job interview. And once I realized that, I got a bit weirded out. He asked me some questions like, "Oh, what will you say to the American companies about this? What do you know about furniture? How much can you tell me about American culture?" and things like this. And I was like, "Oh gosh, what have I walked into?" But anyway, then he was like, "Oh yeah, if you want to, you could definitely start working with this company, being a translator. All you have to do is get in contact with these American furniture companies." And I'm like, I know nothing about business. I know nothing about furniture, and I have absolutely no idea how to get in contact with them. But anyway, he set me up with this person's email, and I've sent them an email, and so I guess maybe potentially I'll be working for them. But anyway, then moving on. So then this manager, she sends me a message on Weixin about, "Oh yeah, this Saturday we're going to have a big party, and you're invited. You should come, and we'll have a big party." I didn't respond to it because I don't always check Weixin. And the next day she sent me, or 2 days later, she sent me a text message saying the same thing. And I was like, "Oh, I guess she really wants me to go to this, so I guess I'll go see what it's like." But I gave kind of a non-committal answer because it was a Saturday night, and both Saturday and Sunday I work 8 to 5. And on Saturday I also have my Korean class 6 to 8. And so I was like, man, when I go there I'll be really tired, and I'll be really tired at work the next day as well, especially if there's any drinking involved or anything. So I gave kind of a non-committal answer, debating whether I wanted to go. And then the day came, and that day, my friend Xiao Yi, he just relentlessly called me even while I was at work. And then I called him during one of my breaks, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm working, and I have Korean class tonight, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it." He's like, "Oh yeah, you have to come, it's fine if you come after your Korean class, so just call me and I'll tell the taxi driver where to go." So I was like, "Okay, well, I guess I'll go to that after my Korean class." So then I go there, and I didn't really quite know what to expect. I was like, it's going to be a party with a manager and maybe some of the staff. I guess I'll see what happens. So when I get there, my friend comes down and greets me, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you came just in time. We're about to have dinner." So I'm like, okay, yeah, great. Even though I'd already had dinner before Korean class, I was like, I can eat a bit more, I guess. So we go up there, and it's one of those expensive type coffee places where they also serve food and things. And so then I get there, and there's this huge table, and there was the boss's wife, the manager, and another manager. And as soon as I walk in, they're like, "Oh yeah, our honored foreign guest has arrived. We're so excited." And I was like, "Oh god, this is probably going to be so awkward." And so it was the four of them. My friend sat on the other side, and there was one other guy who worked there. And then the rest, it was 9. It was 9 menus. And so they were all 20 to something, 30 to somethings, who they all either worked at the furniture store, or they're interning and taking classes at the same time. And a few of them were actual menus, and then a few of them were, okay looking, not too bad. So, starts out, like, not too bad. Like, I drink a bit of baijiu with them. All the managers make, like, strange, like, really emotional speeches that I understood maybe, like, 70% of, but, like, the 30% that I didn't understand was quite important. So I was just like, oh, this is awkward, but at least I get to, eat some nice food and drink. But then that was the other thing is, there was a bunch of nice food, but we couldn't eat it while it was actually hot because, like, they would be making a speech. So then, like, by the time we actually got to eat, all the food was cold, and I was just like, this is so unacceptable. But then, so, like, then I started out okay. Like, I didn't really do much talking to anyone, partially because they were doing the speeches and things. But then, after a few of the speeches, the manager who invited me, she was talking to me, and she was like, oh, you don't really know all these people's names, right? Oh, they should go through and introduce themselves. And during this time, like, my friends Xiaoyi and them, they were talking, and they said something about, like, oh, it'll be just like Fei Cheng, Wu Rao. And I was like, I don't think that's a good idea. But then, like, once one of them said that idea, they were like, oh my gosh, that's amazing, that's a great idea. We'll go through, have all 9 of the girls, like, say their names, and then they'll have 3 sentences where they get to, like, introduce themselves to you. And then at the end, you can choose which one you like the best. And I was like, oh no. And they were like, oh, and then after they all go through, you can then go through and see how many of their names you can remember. I was like, ah, oh, fuck. Like, as if I have a hard enough time remembering, like, 2 or 3 Chinese people's names. If 9 people go through and say their names, there's no way I'm going to remember even half of them. So they all go through and they all, like, say a few sentences, and they're all, like, really excited to, I guess, potentially have a date with a foreigner. I don't know. But anyway, so they all go through and they're like, oh, like, one of them was like, oh, 我叫小云, 我带个帽子. And, they all try to do, like, a little cutesy thing. The other girl was like, oh, 我叫meow meow. It's like, oh. And so all of them had their little thing, and they all tried to, like, make an impression, I guess. So then, like, when I went back through and I had to, like, say how many of their names I could remember, I remembered maybe 6 of the 9, which I thought, that's pretty decent. And it's funny because I forgot, like, maybe the second person's name, and when I forgot their name, they're like, oh, you lost, like, now we have to gambe. And it's like, oh, okay, fine. But then, like, after that second one that I got incorrect, all the others, even if I got their names correct, that we still gambade with each other. I was like, that's not fair. But anyway, so at that point, like, I was getting, like, progressively drunk because it was so many people and so quickly. But, in China, they love doing that kind of crap. So anyway, then after I went through and said all their names, or what I thought their names were, then at the end they're like, okay, now's your time to choose which girl you think is the prettiest, which one, like, you'd want to go on a date with, and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh god. And so I was like, I have 3 choices here. There's the one girl who is, in my opinion, by far, like, the most attractive looking, but she's the youngest. She's only 20, which in American standards, that means she's not even old enough to drink. And then there's one girl who was born in Korea, and she said, like, oh yeah, I'm Korean, I can teach you a bit of Korean. And I was like, well, that's a definite, like, that's a definite maybe. And then the last one, there was a girl who was almost definitely, for sure, a lesbian. And I was like, if I chose her, maybe it would be, like, the least bad, because we could both just, I don't know, pretend. And that way, if anything, like, further happened, it wouldn't really matter. But and I was kind of hoping, like, I would just be able to get out of it without choosing. But then they're all like, yeah, like, finally, Jia, you'll say. And then, like, afterwards, we'll all go through them again, and they'll all say, like, who they think you picked. And I was like, god dang it, this is so awkward and weird. So, like, they made me, like, reach under the table and, say the number. I chose number 4. Who was the Korean, obviously. And, so then they did this whole awkward thing where it's like all 9 of the girls went again and said who they thought I picked, and they all stated a reason. Some of them were like, oh, I can see it in his eyes, he really likes this girl, oh yeah, he keeps, like, looking at this one, he really loves her. And this whole time I'm sitting there like, oh my god, this is so terrible, when is it going to be over? But of course, this is just the beginning. Because then it's like, they went through, and if they were wrong, they had to gambe once. And then obviously then there was the big reveal where it's like, oh, and finally John, he chose number 4, Xiao Yun. And then obviously, like, all the Chinese people are, like, clapping, really excited, and the person who was sitting next to me before, like, moved so that she could come and sit next to me, and then they were like, oh, now the two of you have to ganbei, and then, like, you know, we go to ganbei, and then they're like, oh, wait a minute, no, you can't just ganbei, you have to do the thing where it's, like, you put your arm in theirs, and then you both have to, like, drink awkwardly, yeah, you guys have to do that. I was like, oh, gosh, this is so awkward and strange. And, of course, her being, like, a Chinese person, you know, like, this is a very embarrassing for her as well. So, like, she was probably feeling just as awkward as I was. Well, I was probably definitely a bit more awkward than she was, but she was feeling awkward as well. So we do that once, and they're like, again, we weren't taking enough pictures, we really gotta, like, get this on video. So I was like, okay, fine, like, we'll do a second one, like, right in a row. And this was more than a shot, it was like a little, like, weird cup thing. So we do it again, and then they're like, oh, one more time. And at this point, I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is so much beer so quickly. I'm gonna, like, vomit if I have to do more than this. So then we go and we do it again, and that was that. And then we're like, okay, that's enough. We can't drink anymore. And then, like, Chinese people were, like, all really, really excited about this. And so one of them went and got, like, a string, and they're like, oh, now we're gonna tie your hands together. So, like, my hand was tied with a string to Xiao Yun's hand. And then, of course, it was the whole, 你会唱歌是吧? Oh, okay, yeah, yes I can. 英文的还是中文的? 都可以. 那你要唱什么歌? So I was like, and of course, my fallback song, I was just like, 我会唱表白. And they were like, And my friend Xiaoyi, he was like, 干得漂亮. Because, like, you know, 表白, it would be like, oh, God. Anyway, so then, like, we're still tied to each other, and they go get the mics, and as they're going to get the mics and start the song up, I'm like, oh, God, this is terrible. Like, it would be a little bit less terrible if she could sing with me. I was like, oh, do you know this song? And she was like, no, I don't know this song at all. And I was like, And so, they gave me the mic, and there I am singing Biao Bai to this Chinese girl that I'm attached in the hand with. And of course, all the Chinese people around us are going crazy and taking videos and photos, and it's just like, when is this going to end? And that 3.5 minutes, however long that song is, that was like a very, very long, awkward, painful song. Oof. But then, luckily, after that, we got our hands untied, and both sat down, and of course, she was really, really Chinese about the whole rest of the thing. Like, she felt just as awkward, so she was quite quiet the rest of the night, and I obviously didn't want to keep, like, pursuing her, and so it was just kind of, like, awkward. We maybe spoke a little bit after that, but not really that much. And the rest of the night, it was a bit more toned down. We just got to do a fun, like, few very Chinese-type game things. Got to play Chinese charades, I guess, just like 猜单词, so just guess a word. But yeah, anyway. So I'm thinking that was probably the most awkward night of my entire life. And I was trying to think if something else that could happen that would be more awkward and embarrassing than that. But well, guess that's that.